Good to know. Thank you. Welcome, good morning and welcome everyone to this meeting of the UW System Board of Regents. We'll start the full board portion of our day with the roll call.
Regent President Walsh. Here. Regent Vice President Bogus. Here. Regent Adams. Regent Atwell.
Here.
Regent Brinkus.
Here.
Regent Cologne.
Here.
Regent Jones.
Here.
Regent Cruiser.
Here.
Regent Manydeeds.
Here.
Regent Miller.
Here.
Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Prince.
Present.
Regent Rye.
Here.
Regent Staton.
Here.
Regent Tyler.
Here.
Regent Underly.
Here.
Regent Locks. Regent Locks may be muted.
I don't see him at the table.
He is online. And then Regent Weatherly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The records of the October 5 and 6, 2023 regular meeting of the UW System Board of Regents, the October 13, 2023 meeting of the Exec Committee of the UW System Board of Regents, and the October 30th, 2023 special meeting of the UW System Board of Regents have been provided. Are there any corrections? Seeing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. To open my report, I'd like to offer a brief update on our search for Chancellor Joe Gau's successor at UW La Crosse. Last month, President Rothman and I delivered the charge to the Search and Screen Committee, which is led by Regent Ashok Rai as chair and Dr. Imelda Delgado, professor of sociology and criminal justice in the College of Arts, Social Sciences, and Humanities as vice chair. The Search and Screen Committee reviewed and provided feedback on the position prospectus before it was approved last week by the Special Regent Committee. The committee includes Regents Angela Adams, Evan Brinkus, Jim Cruiser, and Joan Prince, in addition to Regent Rye as chair. The national search officially opened earlier this week, and the deadline to submit nominations and applications for full consideration is January 2nd. And of course, as usual, we hope that if you know folks in the academic world from your contacts that might be good candidates, please do let the committee know. Listening sessions are going to be held on the UW La Crosse campus on Monday and Tuesday of next week. These sessions are an important opportunity for students, faculty, staff, and community members to share what qualities they would like to see in candidates for La Crosse's next chancellor. This feedback will help inform the search committee's work throughout the process, which is expected to be completed before the end of the spring semester. I'd like to ask the committee chair now, Regent Rye, if he has any comments he would like to make about the search.
Well, we're excited to have our listening sessions next week, and I appreciate my fellow regents who will be participating in that.
It's great. It'll be very interesting for you all, I'm sure. Turning now to our Regents Business Partnership Awards, we've continued to recognize how UW universities are building strong relationships with businesses in support of our students and communities. In October, UW Green Bay and the Capital Credit Union were presented with awards to recognize their long, productive, and mutually beneficial relationship. Lori Butts, president and CEO of the credit union, is a UW Green Bay Business Administration graduate. She was the first in her family to attend college and connects deeply with the Access mission at her alma mater. Capital Credit Union helps UW Green Bay with internships and job opportunities and works with the universities to help guide program offerings to ensure students are ready for in-demand jobs. About 1 in 10 Capital Credit Union employees, 1 in 10, is a graduate of UW Green Bay, with 20% of employees overall coming from universities of Wisconsin. For Lori, the mutual commitment is deep. Since 2022, she's served on the Kaufman School of Business Advisory Board, whose mission is to guide program offerings and build partnerships among students, faculty, staff, and businesses. Capital Credit Union also is a philanthropic supporter of both UW Green Bay Athletics and the Charles Schwab Foundation Center for Financial Wellness. Congratulations to both Chancellor Alexander and the Capital Credit Union. Also last month, UW Whitewater and Mercy House were recognized with Regent Business Partnership Awards. UW Whitewater, which has a proud tradition of athletic successes, has actually enjoyed a productive and mutually beneficial relationship with Mercy Health for more than 2 decades. Working together, this partnership strengthens student and team success while inspiring the 600 student athletes on campus each year to be at their peak performance. In fact, Mercy Health provides UW-Whitewater with 2 full-time certified athletic trainers from its staff to work at the university as part of that partnership. Partnering with companies like Mercy Health is vital to powering up the workforce pipeline and helping to keep Wisconsinites healthy. A good example of that is the new collaborative program that just got underway this fall, a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, which has UW-Whitewater at Rock County working together with Edgewood College to help meet the region's demands for BSN prepared nurses at Mercy Health and beyond. Indeed, many Riverhawks go on to become Mercy Health employees. Currently, more than 130 UW-Whitewater alumni are employed throughout the Mercy Health system. Congratulations then to Chancellor King and Mercy Health. We look forward to continuing to highlight examples of how the universities of Wisconsin are building strong relationships with our businesses in support of our students and communities. In other news, Regent Vice President Amy Bogus and I recently joined President Rothman in attending the 7 Generations Intertribal Leadership Summit hosted by the Lakota Ojibwe University in October. And I'd like to invite Regent Vice President Bogus to say a few words about that summit.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. We were there October 12th for the first day of the summit, which took place at Lakota Ojibwe University in partnership with the College of Menominee and also the universities of Wisconsin with partnership and carrying out our tribal consultation policy. It was a wonderful event, and Dr. Jennings, our system tribal liaison, was up there and helped to organize the system in conjunction with the colleges. And it was a wonderful learning experience. I think we're building on our wonderful relationship with the tribes. Part of the key areas that were discussed were workforce development, economic development, how we can both support one another, as well as education, technology, health, environment. And we took part in, I'd say, most of the morning of the first day and learned a lot. And I think we will continue to build this partnership and support the tribes of the state. So it was a wonderful event.
It was, and I think our presence there was very meaningful to those folks. Together, we can make a real difference for Wisconsin, and we appreciate the opportunity to work alongside our tribal partners in this endeavor. We look forward to continued collaboration with all of the tribal nations in Wisconsin. As this board has recently received updates related to mental health and disability services for students, I want to draw attention to the recently released Counseling Impact Assessment Report and the Disability Services Annual Report for 2022 and 23. These reports both continue to highlight the increasing number of students accessing services despite enrollment declines and outline the critical positive influence they have on student success and well-being, and ultimately retention and graduation. Investment in these and other student services are crucial to meeting the strategic plan goal of producing more college graduates. However, both reports also identify a troubling trend that has emerged over the past few years: high staff turnover and small recruitment pools. Jobs in these specialized areas have become much more stressful as student demands increase and the pay has not kept up with the market. This trend is also true in other student services areas, such as advising. As our universities continue to experience budget challenges, it's imperative that we remain aware of the very real impacts this is having on our students and the staff and services that support their success. We need to continue using our influence in whatever ways we can to ensure our universities have what they need to recruit, retain, and graduate the future leaders of Wisconsin. That concludes my report. Over to you, President Rothman.
Great. Thank you, Regent President Walsh, and good morning, everyone. As part of our regular reports to the board on implementing the strategic plan, later this afternoon, we have a presentation from our vice presidents in the Division of Academic and Student Affairs and the Division of University Relations. I'm excited about the progress we are making with the plan and look forward to sharing that with you. I won't go into detail at this point, but I wanted to share that little teaser with you, so please stay tuned. Since this board last met, we have unveiled, as contemplated by our strategic plan, a new name for ourselves, the Universities of Wisconsin. We think this better captures a positive collective identity for the constellation of 13 universities that comprise this system. The University of Wisconsin system continues to be our legal name as directed by state statute. Our new name, brand change are intended to help highlight the enormous value that all of our UW universities offer the state of Wisconsin. As we discuss routinely, our universities touch all corners of our state, whether that be through educational services, world-class research leading to economic growth and the betterment of the human condition, extension services that, as just one example, serve the state's agricultural industry, and services that support budding entrepreneurs, all in a manner consistent with the Wisconsin idea. Rebranding is intended to highlight both the pride and the opportunities our universities present for students seeking to build a stronger future for themselves. As part of our update on the strategic plan, another teaser, you'll hear more about the upcoming advocacy campaign we are building around this branding change from Jeff Brandt and Jack Jablonski later this afternoon. One of the ways we're highlighting the new Universities of Wisconsin is by taking our message directly to the university communities across the state. In recent weeks, we have held 4 more stops on our opportunity tour, bringing our total visits so far to 8 universities. The latest visits included UW River Falls, UW Green Bay, UW Whitewater, and UW Milwaukee. At River Falls, we took part in the SciTech groundbreaking and engaged with hundreds of business and community leaders, as well as several state legislators, as we marked one of the most significant investments at River Falls in some time. This new building will offer the opportunity for greater partnerships between the university and businesses, and also provide students with valuable research opportunities and jobs while still boosting the economy. As President Walsh noted earlier, the presentation of the Regent Business Partnership Award at UW Green Bay to the Capital Credit Union was the highlight of our opportunity tour visit in Green Bay, showcasing the power of university and business partnerships. It was inspiring to see a room full of UWGB alumni at this event, led of course by Capital Credit Union's president and CEO Lori Butts, a first-generation college student herself and a very proud Phoenix alumna. At UW Whitewater, we had an impressive turnout of Warhawk alumni. As a special highlight, we saw a video featuring a first-generation college student, Jalen White, who shared her moving and inspiring story of how she's used the array of great resources at Whitewater to build her own business. It's really another story of how we change the trajectory of people's lives. Finally, at UW Milwaukee, we visited the new collaborative and expansive research suites in the engineering and mathematical science building. These suites showcase research on clean energy power and storage, smart transportation, infrastructure, safer water, advanced manufacturing, and biomedical and health work. The project was funded by the state on an extremely cost-efficient budget and should provide valuable research support for in-demand research and education. In the coming weeks and months, we will continue to take the opportunity tour to other UW universities around the state. And you can see more of the stories and videos and photographs from the tour on X, formerly known as Twitter, by following me or through our website at Wisconsin.edu. Turning now to some legislative matters. Let me start with the JFC supplemental appropriation. As we heard this morning in the Business and Finance Committee presentation, we are now moving towards submission of a plan for the use of workforce development funding included in the 23-25 biennial budget. Regent Rye will provide an overview of that presentation immediately following my report, but I'd like to say a few words in preface. As you've heard from me before, the war for talent in Wisconsin is real and it is urgent. To win this war, Wisconsin needs to lever its greatest talent generator and magnet, that is the universities of Wisconsin. As part of our commitment to serve the people of our state and help ensure that the state's economy is robust and thriving, the universities of Wisconsin have been directing our resources for years into high demand fields, including engineering, nursing, and healthcare. business and finance, and data and computer science. Our universities already deliver nearly 15,000 graduates into STEM and healthcare careers each year. That is close to 40% of all of the degrees awarded by the universities of Wisconsin overall, and reflects a 30% increase in those degrees over the past 10 years. Yet employers continue to tell us they need even more skilled talent. To help respond to these demands and challenges, the universities of Wisconsin will be, subject to approval of this board, submitting a plan for the use of workforce development funding included in the most recent biennial budget. Each UW university has identified opportunities to increase capacity and develop additional talent in one or more of the previously mentioned high-demand fields, both for now and into the future. 9 universities, just as one example, have proposed building or adding 2 existing programs to grow their capacity in the burgeoning area of artificial intelligence. The universities of Wisconsin are an extraordinary asset for all Wisconsinites. As the legislature looks for opportunities to address our significant workforce challenges, we hope to be its partner and believe these proposals can add capacity where Wisconsin needs it most. Now let me address pay plan for just a moment. I know that has generated a fair amount of interest and well warranted in the recent days. The universities of Wisconsin are here to serve all Wisconsinites. We will continue to work with the governor, every legislator, and other stakeholders to best provide the education that our students deserve and their parents expect. The stakes for what Wisconsin's economic future rest on our ability to develop talent all Wisconsinites are counting on. And the less we are subject to ongoing political disputes, the better we can do our job. As I have said from the beginning, it was unprecedented to withhold pay from our employees as part of a political disagreement between 2 separate branches of government. Targeting the universities of Wisconsin employees and their families to compel our universities to eliminate all diversity and equity and inclusion positions, which was vetoed by the governor in the budget, left us in an incredible predicament. The withholding of compensation that was approved by the legislature and signed into law by the governor is impacting all of our employees, including our custodians, our food service workers, our administrative assistants, and everyone throughout our universities. These are people who have rent payments to make. They have mortgage payments to make. They have to put food on the table. They have to clothe their children, and they simply have to live. And in a lot of cases, they're doing so on a paycheck by paycheck basis. Given the great work our people do, and particularly in an inflationary environment, the withholding of compensation is just plain wrong. I am deeply troubled by our faculty and staff being stuck in the middle of this dispute. While the lawsuit recently filed by Governor Evers is not our lawsuit, it is time for this whole ordeal that is blocking pay for our employees to come to an end. Now let me talk about some great accomplishments. There are some great things that are going on. Several weeks ago, the U.S. Economic Development Administration announced that the Wisconsin Biotech or BioHealth Tech Hub had been selected from among hundreds of applications to be just one of just 31 tech hub regions in the country. There are 31 tech hub regions in the country, and we are one of them. This initiative is designed to drive regional innovation and job creation by strengthening the region's capacity to manufacture, commercialize, and deploy technology that advances American competitiveness. The Wisconsin BioHealth Tech Hub will receive a $350,000 planning grant and can now apply for up to $70 million in federal funds to develop a network of companies, universities, investors, and economic development agencies to accelerate advancements in biotechnology and personalized medicine. The Universities of Wisconsin Administration and UW-Madison are members of a BioHealth consortium that was formed to seek tech hub status. And there can be no doubt that UW-Madison's internationally recognized biohealth expertise was essential in Wisconsin achieving this designation. I'm also proud to recognize that Idella Kangas, the recently appointed Director for Economic and Employer Engagement for the Universities of Wisconsin, played a key role in making this happen as well. And as an added bonus, Idella will present later in the meeting to give you more detail and outline the path forward relative to the Tech Hub designation. Now, let me turn to another area of forward progress that I'm particularly happy about. I'm pleased to share that the 10-day enrollment numbers from the Universities of Wisconsin have now been released, and they are slightly better than the already promising preliminary numbers we shared at the October meeting. For the fall semester, 162,528 students were officially enrolled, which reflected the first increase in headcount enrollment at our universities since 2014. 10-day enrollment was up by 2% or more at 6 of our 13 universities, flat at 5, and down by 2% or more at the remaining 2 universities. A particularly encouraging sign to me is freshman enrollment and where that stands, with several UWs posting notable increases in their freshman enrollment. And when we look at freshman enrollment across the system, when you exclude Madison, which intentionally managed its freshman class down due to capacity constraints, our freshman enrollment is up nearly 3%. Two-year branch campuses, however, continue to grapple with declining enrollment. Branch campus headcount fell in the aggregate by about 4% this year. The ongoing declines in enrollment at our two-year campuses will require us to realign our work here to best meet market realities and prepare for the future. As you know, and consistent with our strategic plan, last month, after a lengthy review process led by our chancellors over the summer, we decided to close one campus entirely this year, namely UW-Platteville at Richland, and end in-person instruction at 2 others, UW-Milwaukee at Washington County and UW-Oshkosh-Fond du Lac. These decisions are in direct response to evolving student demand that we're seeing in the marketplace. As importantly, though, we are going to actively work with our county partners at our 10 remaining branch campuses to determine the best ways to serve those communities moving forward. To provide needed long-term stability, we will embrace change, such as expanding degree options, enhancing upskilling opportunities, expanding dual enrollment, and/or creating navigation centers for high school and non-traditional students. We will innovate to meet the evolving needs in higher education, and those conversations are ongoing. Overall, though, I think the big picture in Wisconsin shows welcome signs of growing enrollment, and that's what we are focused on, and affords us new opportunities to best serve all of our citizens of our state. Finally, I'd like to remind you of an awards presentation that will be held just down the hall shortly after the conclusion of this meeting this afternoon. At that time, we will recognize the 2023 Outstanding Women of Color in Education Awards and Dr. P.B. Poorman Awards for Outstanding Achievement on behalf of LGBTQ+ people. Some outstanding work is being done, and we welcome the opportunity to honor the winners. And that concludes my report for today. Back to you, President Walsh.
Thank you, President Rothman. And now I will call upon Regent Rye to present a report of the Business and Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. The Business and Finance Committee acted on its agenda as follows. I'll start with item D. First, as President Rothman just noted, the committee reviewed and approved the UW system plan for workforce development funding that was included in the 2023-25 state biennial budget. As my fellow regents will recall, the state budget placed about $32 million in the Joint Finance Committee's supplemental appropriation for release to the universities of Wisconsin upon request and approval for performance on, quote, expanding contributions to the workforce, end quote, which is one of the 4 goals for which outcomes-based funding is allocated to the universities of Wisconsin. The plan before us was developed following thoughtful analysis of Wisconsin's workforce needs. By 2032, our state will need another 5,200 computer scientists, 5,500 business and finance professionals, 9,700 nurses and other medical specialties, and 2,800 engineers above and beyond what we're currently graduating. While workforce shortages exist across multiple industries, these are 4 fields that are the focus of the UW's workforce plan. I'd like to reiterate President Rothman's statement that we have a unique opportunity here to partner with our elected officials to tackle an undeniable need that our state has. In recognition that labor shortages are a statewide challenge, every UW institution developed initiatives designed to increase the number of graduates in one or more of these academic disciplines, with the annual funding ranging from $1 million at the comprehensives to about $2.5 million at the R1s, totaling about $15.9 million in each year of the biennium. The end result is a well-conceived plan that plays to the unique strengths of each university. Once fully phased in, these initiatives are projected to provide the Wisconsin workforce with an additional 9,350 graduates over a 5-year period across these high-demand fields. While this plan will not entirely close the workforce shortage gaps that I noted earlier, it represents a single step towards addressing employer needs and reflects one of the pillars of our UW strategic plan in advancing economic prosperity for our state. The workforce plan will be submitted to the Joint Finance Committee following the board's approval today. As lawmakers seek answers to our workforce challenges, the universities of Wisconsin are pleased to partner with them and deliver a ready-made solution that supports our students, our employers, and our communities across Wisconsin. Next, the committee approved 2 contracts, one on behalf of UW River Falls and the other on behalf of UW Whitewater with Shorelight LLC. Shorelight provides services as an international recruitment agent aggregator, engaging with agents to identify and recruit international students to these universities. Each of these 5-year agreements falls under the terms of a non-exclusive master services agreement established by UW administration to drive efficiency and promote consistency across the institutions. This effort is one component of an internationalization plan developed by a multi-campus team that was convened to increase international student enrollment in support of our strategic plan. This is an approach that is believed to have high potential, and we anticipate that additional institutions will develop similar agreements in the months ahead, whether it be Shorelight or another vendor. Next, item G, the committee then approved modifications to several of our Regent policies related to tuition and fees. As part of the ongoing effort to modernize Regent policy documents, this proposal rescinds, updates, and consolidates 7 current policies into one single Regent tuition policy. Substantive changes include reclassifying institution-wide differentials as base tuition starting in the next academic year, continuing to allow for program-specific tuition rates while allowing but not requiring student involvement, removing 2 current tuition policy principles, one that is under the purview of lawmakers, the other that is more appropriately tasked to management, and modifying language to better reflect provisions in state statute. Next, item H. Next, the committee heard a report on the intermediate term fund from Chief Investment Officer Chuck Saunders of the Office of Trust Funds. This fund was established to increase revenue generating opportunities for cash balances through intermediate term investments. Chuck shared an overview of the asset allocation model, our fund performance, and the governance structure. Following that, the committee then approved a new Regent policy, I, document related to the intermediate term cash fund. The policy sets forth the key elements to be incorporated in the investment policy statement, including investment objectives and policies, the roles and duties of those responsible for the management, and reporting obligations to the Board of Regents through the Business and Finance Committee. And lastly, Chuck Saunders presented the investment report for the period ending June 30th. As of the date, trust funds assets totaled $580.1 million. For the quarter, the long-term fund increased in value by 2.37%, slightly outperforming its benchmark. The income cash fund gained 1.24% for the period. In conclusion, on behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I now move approval of resolutions D, E, F, G, and I.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any questions or discussion for Business and Finance Chair Wright? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of passing the resolutions, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Regent Walks. Good to know you're with us. Hearing no objections, the resolutions pass. Thank you, Regent Rye, for your report. In recognition of Veterans Day this weekend, we would like to take this opportunity to thank all those who wear, have worn, or will wear the uniform in service of our country. We have deep respect and gratitude for those who serve, both on and off the battlefield, those who steadfastly stand on guard to ensure our freedom, our security, and our cherished way of life. May I ask that any veterans in the room please stand to be recognized? That's great. Thank you all. We will now hear an update to last year's panel discussion about student veteran services. Here to lead that presentation is Joe Rasmussen, Director of University Veteran Services at UW-Madison. Joe, see he's on his way.
Better make it official here.
May I ask you to move the mic a little closer to your, just pull it right out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this okay?
This is perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, first I'd like to say it's an honor to be here today. Thanks for the return invitation. This Saturday is Veterans Day. Before I get into it, I'd like to invite everyone to connect with our students through our Badger Veteran Photo Project. Sometime over the next few days, please take the time to see the faces and read the stories of our men and women that have served and now study at our university. You can find the photo project at the top of UW-Madison Veteran Services website, which is veterans.wisc.edu. As you'd mentioned, in 2022, I was here as part of a panel along with one of your colleagues, Regent Stanton, a U.S. Army veteran. And I shared some information about a UW study, the Veterans Education to Workforce Affinity and Success Study, or VETWAYS. I also shared a quote from the principal investigator, Dr. Ross Benbow, who said, "Student veteran is not a status, it's a culture." He's right. I trust Dr. Benbow's work. He spent hundreds of hours interviewing student veterans from UW-Milwaukee, UW-Oshkosh, UW-Stout, UW-Green Bay, and UW-Madison. In 2023, VETWAYS also added Wright State University, Middle Tennessee State University, University of New Mexico, University of Maryland, and University of Texas at San Antonio. The research is really growing. Dr. Benbow does this all with one goal: to provide us with the information we need to make informed decisions. Earlier this year, in September, I testified to the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Veterans Affairs in a hearing that's titled, "Less is More, the Impact of Bureaucratic Red Tape on Veterans Education Benefits." Sounds like a good title for a congressional hearing. Thanks to some new federal laws, veteran education benefits became much more difficult to manage. In fact, the measurable work from 2021 to 2022 increased by 67%, which doesn't even account for business practices and procedure changes, or their new reporting system, or a new audit system that the federal government recently set up. The takeaway from that testimony was bureaucracy is keeping university veteran services staff from spending more time, or keeping them from spending more time on administrative tasks and less time face-to-face with our student veterans. So what we've learned from VETWAYS is new data that tells us something that we probably already all feel is correct. The more time student veterans spend with university veteran staff, the better outcomes they have. It's not terribly surprising, but we have data to back that up now. We already knew from earlier VETWAYS data that research on veterans show that they're isolated on campus. In fact, the students in the study, on average, had less than one other person in their close personal network who is a college student or a university staff member. less than one. We also know that students with higher connections, more connections to either university staff or other students do better. The number one thing that Betways says that we can do is, in fact, get more face-to-face time with our university veteran services staff and those students. The key is the quality of interactions with the dedicated staff. Without trying, veterans and military connected students have been growing on our campuses. However, we haven't done our best at keeping up. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs recommends a staffing ratio of 1 veteran services staff per 200 GI Bill students, a number I'm aiming to reach. It was also a number that was highlighted in Governor Evers' budget proposal earlier this year. We know from Betways that that number is actually probably a little too low. In fact, it was also part of the conversation we had during that congressional hearing. Many settled on a 1-to-100 ratio as the potential new recommendation. With the proper tools, veterans bring diversity and strengths to our campuses in the form of public service, on-the-job experience, communication, teamwork, and problem solving. But we need to provide more support for our military connected students. We also need to provide support in key advocacy places, such as a current bill in the legislature, which would reduce debt for our students who are serving in the Wisconsin National Guard. We also need to become more dynamic in supporting veterans throughout the universities by a creation of some sort of central office or group that reports to someone in power. I brought handouts from Dr. Benbow's research, Betways, that I'd love to share with everyone. I'd like to also have a conversation here today, and I plan on staying for lunch as well. So I'd certainly welcome and would love to have conversation.
Thank you very much, Joe. Questions or comments on this work? Yes, Regent Bogus.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm just curious if you have any data on if a veteran drops out, doesn't graduate, is there any way to have a touch point, to have any kind of exit interview to find out what the issues were for that person?
I think it depends on how well they're connected to the university and if they feel like they have someone they can connect or talk with. So we'll have veterans who things become overwhelming. Ideally, they would reach out to someone like myself or someone else in one of our offices, and we would help them through that. Sometimes the help through that is navigating how to withdraw from the semester. Unfortunately, if the students haven't developed that close personal relationship, they're probably going to just drop out and not tell anybody. And those are the more worrisome ones because they're not connected to the resources that could help them. But we don't have something in place right now that seeks them out.
Thank you.
Regent Rye.
President, thanks for your presentation. You obviously get a lot of issues that come through a veteran's office on campus, some that you can handle, some that you can't and have to outsource. If there was a single need where maybe there would be a bigger benefit instead of outsourcing it was within the office, what would that be? Or what do you see most coming in on our campuses that we maybe are not addressing well enough within that office that we need to bring there?
I think if I were to try to distill down like a single need, it would actually, I don't know that I could say the thing particular. The thing is earlier communication. Our office goes to every single orientation. UW Madison likes to have a lot of them in the summer, and we send people to them. Each individual who has a military connection gets an in-person meeting with one of my staff members. It takes a lot of time, but I think it's the best investment we can do, which is to meet the students the moment they set foot on campus. I'd say if everybody would have the ability to receive that in-person service the moment they show up on campus, that would be the place I would start. It builds the relationship and hopefully gets to supporting the student that we were just talking about earlier.
I guess maybe I
Yes.
should rephrase my question real quick, because I appreciate your answer, Joe, but I guess maybe I didn't ask what I was looking for as much. student needs, the most common thing that you're addressing coming into a veteran's office that you're unable to handle that you need help with? Is that financial? Is it mental health? What are the areas that if as a board we were to help with resources within the office or help with those connections, what's the most common thing that you're seeing that is frustrating?
The most common thing is the first most important thing to our students, which is being able to pay for things.
Okay.
So a lot of our veterans are first generation college students. They've transferred from a number of different institutions. When they come to one of our universities, they might look like a junior, but this might be the first time they've actually set foot on a college campus and they don't know how to access all of the other services that a lot of students are already more familiar with getting. Financial aid, just turning on the GI Bill, finding if they're a bit older, access to the other things that just adults need, like healthcare. But it all stems from that benefits, that financial piece.
Thanks. It's a viewpoint that would have guessed. So I really do appreciate the answer.
Regent Jones.
Thanks, Joe. And this might be a little bit unfair question, but are we collectively, including your team and the university system, are we doing a better job than we have in the past when it comes to the veterans culture and the veterans community? Are we making progress?
I certainly can say that there's some progress in certain places. So, for example, the way that education benefits have progressed recently means that more military connected students are showing up. A lot of growth in the children of veterans, actually. And that, it makes sense when you think about it. So I joined the military back in 2002, right when I graduated high school. That was 20 some years ago. I'm hypothetically old enough to have a college age child. I'm a 4-year-old, but that wave of all of these service members after 9/11, they're coming, they're turning college age and they're accessing their benefits. I would say that that's probably the best thing that we're doing is we're at least staying nimble in that place.
Other questions or comments? I just want to make sure, Joe, that I understood what you said. Did you actually say a 67% increase in paperwork for someone trying to claim veterans education benefits, or did I mishear you?
67% is the increase in paperwork's a great way to put it. It's become a lot more complicated, basically overnight.
Who is responsible for such a ridiculous change?
So our friends in Congress
Yeah.
passed a very large omnibus back in 2020, and it did a bunch of things. In the name of supporting veterans, it did some things that helped, and it did other things that they were hopeful would help and turned into, as I had mentioned, something that our staff now spends more time pushing buttons or pushing paper and less time doing that face-to-face work. So yeah, it's the right number. And as I said, it's actually the only number that we can track. It doesn't account for all of these other business practices that we had to put into place. It's been a lot.
I'm not sure you can really call it a benefit if it buries you in paperwork. I'll have to think about that one, but thank you for clarifying that for me. Any other questions? Yes, Regent Tyler.
So I'm wondering, for veterans to access services or the children of veterans to access services, do they need to self-identify, or do you get a list of these are the folks coming in that are veterans, or can you give us a sense of how that works, or is that something where the veteran has to identify themselves as either a veteran or a child of a veteran?
Yeah, identification can be tricky. What we do here at UW-Madison is every student who identifies on an application that they have a military connection, either personal service or a family member that served, we reach out to them. We send them a message within 4 days of when they applied to the university, and we start that conversation at that point. I'm not sure that that happens everywhere. It also doesn't catch everybody. So some people might apply to one of our universities and then join the military and come back to one of our campuses, and they wouldn't be caught in that. So, but to get to the question, we ask on an application, so we have self-report data. And starting as early as possible is the best way to.
So is that on, I should know this, but I don't know, is that on the FAFSA or is there something? So we're doing a unified application. Is it on that?
There is on the application for admission a question as to whether or not an individual had served or if they had a parent that served.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Joe. Good to see you again. Thanks for all the work that you're doing to support our student veterans.
I appreciate it. And I brought, like I said, a stack of a one pager that Dr. Ross Benbow created just for this.
Thank you.
So
I think everyone would like to have a copy, and if you pass it up
I'll either
to,
pass it or leave it
Yeah.
here.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since we're doing so well time-wise, we're going to dip a little into our post-lunch reporting. So that brings us to the strategic plan, and I'm going to turn it over to President Rothman.
Great, thank you very much. You know, we are continuing in our commitment to the board to provide regular updates on our progress in implementing our 5-year strategic plan that this board approved last December. Similar to what we did in July in La Crosse, I've asked 2 of our vice presidents today and members of their team to lead a brief overview of their recent efforts and accomplishments in specific areas. The strategic plan approved by this board is truly our North Star, and it is premised on the fact that the status quo in higher education and at the universities of Wisconsin is not sustainable. I would offer that circumstances and events of the past few weeks and months suggest that we are probably right in that supposition. The strategic plan is focused on addressing some of the significant challenges facing our state, including, among others, a substantial shortage of workers with a 4-year degree or more, shifting demographics, a declining perception of the value of a college degree coupled with a decline in the participation rate of high school graduates going on to higher education, and the need to maintain and enhance world-class research capabilities. In the aggregate, if unaddressed, I believe these issues pose a significant threat to our state's long-term economic viability. Before we turn to today's presentation, however, I wanted to say a few words about a topic that's receiving a lot of attention these days, and that's freedom of expression on our campuses. It's a concept that is deeply woven into the fabric of academia, and the universities of Wisconsin are no exception. As you know, one of the 4 pillars of our strategic plan is to champion the democratic principles of free expression, academic freedom, and civil discourse. It goes without saying that we are living in very challenging times, and as we have all witnessed recently, there are a lot of passionate opinions on all sides of so many contentious issues that are demanding to be heard. I am grateful that the unrest and violence we are seeing on campuses across the country has not been occurring on our university campuses here in Wisconsin. I continue to believe that our universities must be marketplaces of ideas where civil dialogue is encouraged and differing ideas can be exchanged and vigorously debated. Likewise, we expect that speech on our campuses will be free of threats and intimidation, and we will continue to prioritize the physical safety of our students and reject and condemn bigotry in all its forms. In my meetings with students for our It's Just Coffee get-togethers, I am truly encouraged by what I see and hear in this regard. And I also know our universities in Wisconsin are working hard to make sure the marketplace of ideas flourishes and that they are encouraging the practice of civil dialogue. True learning occurs when we can discuss complex and divisive issues in a civil manner. I do not think that concept is debatable. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to foreshadow something on the agenda for our December board meeting, and that is a discussion around freedom of speech and freedom of expression and what our campuses are doing to forward those values. I hope we can have at that time a fulsome and in-depth conversation around those topics. It is absolutely critical to who we are and what we do. But as for today, the universities of Wisconsin can help play a major role in finding and implementing solutions. And as you'll hear from our next presenters, we're making great progress on that relative to our strategic plan. I am truly proud of the hard work our team has done to date. When we laid out a strategic plan and people ask me from time to time, well, why are you doing this? And I said, because we said we would, because the board approved a strategic plan. We are living it. To tell us more, I'm now pleased to turn the presentation over first to Johannes Britz, Senior Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs. And I suspect, but this will probably be after lunch, to Jeff Brandt, Vice President for University Relations. Johannes and Jeff will each summarize the various actions their respective teams have taken in furtherance of the strategic plan and what you can expect to see moving forward. But to start this morning, I will turn it over to Johannes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Board of Regents members and other colleagues today here with us. Thank you for the opportunity to update you again on our strategic plan. And I would like to just start off by making 4 introductory comments. First of all, as President Rothman said, the strategic plan really shaped our work and prioritized what we do. And as we said the other day with Jeff and with Sean, it truly created a culture of collaboration, because there's no way I can do like direct admissions or the innovation grant or working on HR issues on immigration if I don't work together with Jeff and Sean. So it really helped to create that culture of collaboration in what we do. My second comment relates to priorities. In my office, we are busy like with 25 different initiatives with the strategic plan, but we have prioritized those because you can't do them all together. So I just list, for example, the online growth agenda, and I'm very happy to report out, and I know President Rothman traveled a lot lately and he was very busy. So we booked with him next week to give him an update on the first, on the prototype of the online portal is done. And we want to roll this out January, where we integrate with, as the universities of Wisconsin online, every single campus online programs. That's a significant job that we have done, and we're going to roll this out coming January. Also, our other priorities that you will hear from my colleagues relates to direct admissions, dual enrollments, internationalization, as well as mental health. And there are a number of others, but we've prioritized what we do. My third comment relates to the process. It's new. The strategic plan, we had to work out how do we make this happen. I started new in my job. What is the role of a system? What do we need to do? So in the process that we designed, we really want to be bottom up in our approach. In other words, what we did was role definition. It helped a lot. When we get together, all the international folks, the provost was there, other people, when we got them together on research, on open education resources, we asked 3 key questions. What should be the role of a campus in this endeavor? What's the role of system? And if we say this is the role of system, what does it mean? How can we support? How can we coordinate? Or where do we need to take the lead? And they need to tell us. We asked those questions and we got the feedback. Or where do we need to work jointly together? So it helped us a lot to do role definition and clarification when we structure what we want to do in terms of the strategic plan. On the process also is to make sure we are inclusive, because the campuses sometimes forget that we deal with shared governance. How do we work with everybody on the campus? So we engage, and as far as we could, engage all the campuses on all our initiatives to ensure that they know or that they are involved in what we do. Some of the work engaged task forces. So you will hear from a task force on direct admissions. You will hear from a task force on dual enrollments. You will hear from a task force on the online planning, a task force on internationalization. We made sure that we have campus representation, system representation, our shared governance. We have faculty members and other members of shared governance on those task forces to give us the necessary input as needed. And then we have representation from our stakeholders. And here I just want to do another shout out again for our DPI and Regent Jill Underly. As you know, I've said that our open line, our open cell phone line, our open communication, and help us to structure, for example, direct admissions and dual enrollments. There's no way we could have done this and move forward if we do not have that proactive, positive support from the region and from DPI, which is on that committee. So I just want to mention that again. And for our, what we also did as part of our strategic thinking is to engage the chancellors and the provost as our executive sponsors. In about every one of these task force, we have a 1 or 2 chancellor or provost as executive sponsors who oversee the process with us, and 11th Chancellor there with the dual enrollment, which is Oshkosh campus is with us, working with us on how can we make sure that we engage our campuses on the process. And my fourth comment is, how do we communicate this? How do we make sure people know about this? Now, you can never over-communicate. People will always say, oh, I didn't know about that. But what we try to do is I attend all the shared governance meetings. I sit in there, I listen, and if needed and ask, I give an update. We always, and I just want to say, President and Vice President, Mr. President, being there for the shared governance make a huge difference. They really do appreciate where there's an opportunity for an open discourse to ask questions about the strategic plan. Where do we go? I always try to update them in my own newsletter that I always give a little update. I send it out to everybody, all the shared governance groups, the provosts, the chancellors, US Regents get my update. We put some pictures in just to get a sense of, wow, these are the things that we do so that people know at least to the best of our abilities to communicate this. And the other thing that we did, for example, the online process, the document that was then finally formalized, we sent it to everybody, to all the campuses, said, give us input, give us feedback. You see what we planned, this is what we want to do. And we plan the same process. I mean, we will still meet with our executive sponsors. We have two provosts also on the committee for dual enrollments. It's complex, and you will hear that today. But share it. Tell us, this is how we think. It is a very, very complicated process in the state that we want to work through. So we want to do our best to have effective communication. So today we want to update you a little bit on internationalization, direct admissions, dual enrollments, and program array planning. And I have my colleagues here with me who will introduce those topics. On the international front, I'm actually very excited about that, being international myself. When I listen to the veterans and you say, yes, this is where I come from. I'm international. I came here. I just loved it. And I said, I stayed. This is one of the best places in the world to be. Lake Michigan, the place, etc. That just, and I cannot understand why can we not bring more international people and keep them here. So on the international front, you will hear this morning, and Regent Ray, thank you very much for the positive approval of the Shoreline contract. It fits into the strategic plan of internationalization. I want to do a shout out for my two co-sponsors here, Chancellor Gallo, who cannot be here, unfortunately. She attended about every meeting that we had, every discussion. Her input was significant in moving forward. When I asked her, is she willing? She said, absolutely, I'm willing. So just a shout out. And then, of course, to Betsy Morgan, my other colleague, who said, of course, I like international. I will be with you. And then some of my other colleagues helped me as provost to work through this. We engage a lot of campus meetings, about 5 or 6 meetings since January. We're now in October. We have identified 5 key pillars in terms of our strategic plan. The first one is, of course, increase enrollments. The second one, we said, we really want to engage and invest more in a cultural competency in a global world, that our own students get more exposed to a global world and understand that sharing of ideas. If you talk about public discourse, etc., get the international perspective as well. So we really want to engage in a space of a cultural competence. And Prince, you asked that question last time. The third strategic pillar is really want to see if we cannot move the needle on keeping our international students to stay in the state and find a job here. It's much more challenging. We talked about that. Immigration issues, J visas, OPT, etc., but we have way too few students who end up working and living in the state. And then the fourth one is just branding. Universities of Wisconsin, I like it. I said, that sells. International people still look at Wisconsin as a place where they want to come. We need to maximize the brand to recruit more international students. And then, of course, the fifth pillar was when we said, we have the Hessen Agreement with the state of Hessen. And up to this point, for 40 years, Milwaukee and Madison benefited a lot from this. But we can do even better. So we said, what can we do to really increase our relationship with Hessen? And can we actually look at other states in the world that we can really have a sisters agreement? Doesn't matter how we work on that. So those were the 5 pillars that we have identified. Today, I want to just focus briefly on 2 of them. And as one of my colleagues said, when we talk about the investment in international enrollments, it is a tranche of our strategic investment in internationalization. It's just part of it. But if you look at our numbers, graduate numbers is fairly high. 20%, 1 out of 5 students in this state that study in our system is international. Now, if you look at Madison, you look at Milwaukee, Madison is about 30% international graduate students. Milwaukee is about 26. Milwaukee really increased it from Indian students specifically, but about 26%. But the overall average, 20%. That's good. We can also do better there, but I think 20% is a really good number for graduates. Undergraduates, we are so far behind. 4% of our internet for our student body is international. And if you take out Madison, it's much lower. Madison, about 10%, River Falls, 9% of their undergraduate student body is international. Then I've mentioned this morning, I was surprised when I saw we have 189 students from Canada. It's a neighboring state. We need to be creative. Now, Shorelight is one approach. There can be other creative, significant ways we can bring Canadian students to study here other than just ice hockey players. I just think, as somebody said, half of them are probably ice hockey. I said, yep, I learned something new. I didn't even know what's ice hockey. I just called it hockey, whatever. But maybe we should have more ice hockey rings. I don't know. For Indian students, you bring cricket. It's their religion. I mean, sports sells to recruit students. So we need to think differently in the way that we recruit international students. We've also seen a shift from China to India and surrounding states in Southeast Asia. That is where I really think Shorelight would really be a huge benefit for us to recruit the students in that space. And then, of course, as I said, 4% undergraduate students. Minnesota, Illinois is about 10 to 11%. So we have a goal to double the number from 4 to 8%. I don't think that's too difficult. I'm just astounded when I learned 4%. I think we really need to move to bring in that to 8%. So on the Hessen agreement, as I said, Milwaukee and Madison benefited to the benefit of students, faculty, exchanges. It's an unbelievably experience for students. I always said for students, high school, when you graduate, if you have money for a used old car or money for an airline ticket, buy an airline ticket. It's a much better investment and explore the world. And this is what Hessen gave us. So what we did and decided based on our strategic investment is to make a small grant available, what I just call it an incentive grant, to all the campuses and say, do one of three things or all three if you have enough money and you want to put in more. We just give $10,000 to every campus and say, either work on a co-research, find a researchers in Gießen or some Dortmunds, whatever in Gießen, get a faculty, and all I want from them is to have a joint research proposal to submit it. Give it to the provost and let them run it. But you bring the people together, or co-teaching. I know Milwaukee, where I was the provost in education, and Joan, you would know that, Regent Joan, there was a very successful co-teaching model between Gießen and Milwaukee on education, where the two faculty members just had a joint classroom virtually between the two states, and it can work. So I said, that work, bring them together, use the money to pay the airline tickets, bring them together, or if none of those work, support your students to travel to Gießen and to Hessen. So those are the investments that we have made. I said, it's up to you. You can bring it, whatever you do, just give me a report by the end of next summer. Hopefully we will see success there. So that is part of the international investment. And I'm very grateful and excited about this morning when we got that approved and says, tomorrow morning we meet with Shorelight. We're going to make this work. We're going to reach out to all the other campuses. I'm now giving it over to Julia Amon, my Associate Vice President, to talk a little bit about she just came back from a conference last night. We had a backup plan, but she made it, flights, everything work out. Julia, I'm giving her a lot of work on direct admissions.
Thank you. Good morning, all. I'm very happy to join you today to provide an update on the implementation of Direct Admit Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin's direct admission program that you've already heard briefly about, most recently back in October. Since I last provided the Education Committee a briefing in October, many of you likely saw news across the state about our initiative and our goal to help more Wisconsinites earn a University of Wisconsin degree. Today, I'm going to be providing an overview of the work of the Direct Admissions Implementation Team led by my Universities of Wisconsin colleague, Karina Diaz-Suazo and Aaron Grisham from UW-Oshkosh. In a few short months, that team has made tremendous progress on implementation with the goal of delivering our first direct admit letters in July 2024. So just as a reminder, in terms of what is direct admissions bypasses and accelerates the typical admission process. So students are proactively guaranteed admission based on existing high school data. In this case, it's our high school courses that the students have completed and their high school GPA. And all of this is happening before the ordinary admissions application process would begin. What does the research tell us about direct admissions? Well, early research on this initiative basically provides evidence that institutions see somewhat an increase in applications, sometimes quite significant, a slight increase in enrollment, and also increased access, with universities seeing students enroll who might not have traditionally considered a college degree or that institution. However, the research also is telling us that the biggest enrollment gains come when institutions using direct admissions couple that direct admissions offer letter with financial support and then also wraparound services. Although some students are eager to accept direct admissions offers, many were unable to do so because it was not an affordable option for them. In addition to the enrollment impacts of direct admission, early research is also speaking to the real human impact of this initiative. Research demonstrates how stressful and the traditional admission process is for many students and their families. Direct admissions changes that reality, resulting in a positive emotional outcome. And direct admissions reaches many students who might not have ever considered themselves college material. Getting a direct admission offer letter has the ability to increase confidence and self-efficacy. So where are we now since our work began in earnest in May? So direct admissions requires a strong partnership, as you already heard, with high schools and many tech-enabled processes. As a reminder, our program is a triple opt-in program. So first, our UW universities decide if and how they want to participate. Next, the high schools decide if they want to participate. And then finally, our high school students who are participating in those high schools decide if they themselves want to opt in. Our program is designed to start in the summer or early fall of fall 24, with the first letters going to the rising seniors in July 24 for admission to the universities of Wisconsin in fall 25. So this offer of admission is going to allow those students to skip the traditional application, the application fee, and the transcript request process. For phase 1 of our initiative, 10 of our UW universities have opted in to participate. Some of our universities are participating at their branch and main campuses, while others may participate at one or the other. We will review participation criteria and outcomes annually and allow UW universities a chance to opt in each year and also make any changes that they want to regarding their admission criteria. A critical factor in implementing our direct admission program in such a short timeline has been partnering with high school student information system vendors. Partnering with SIS vendors allows us to use common protocols to make changes across all the high schools using the same SIS, making automation possible and implementation much easier and much quicker. We're very pleased to report that we partnered with 2 of the largest SIS vendors in the state for our phase 1 program, both Infinite Campus and Skyward. And since I spoke to you in October, we are working with a 3rd vendor, Power School, and we're hoping to bring them on board as possibly as early as phase 1, but surely in phase 2. In phase 2, we also hope to bring other vendors on board and then work on low-tech solutions for high schools who are not using those SIS vendors. Ultimately, we want to bring everybody on board. So how many students are going to be eligible? Although not every high school is going to be able to participate in phase 1, with both Infinite Campus and Skyward on board, we have the potential to reach nearly 60% of all high schools in Wisconsin. And if you look specifically just at the public high schools, we're going to be reaching 81.5% of public high schools. This is a little flying thing in here. Give me a minute to get us all put together. Okay, so how does this whole matching thing work? So first, the UW universities have identified the high school GPA that aligns with their admission profile. And we're going to be using that to align with the high school course credits that also align with the UW freshman admission policy requirements. Then the high schools are going to be identifying students who meet those criteria, and they're going to be making the matches. Based on those matches, the high schools using their SIS are going to be able to generate those direct admission offer letters. So a student will receive one letter that basically says, congratulations, you're into 10 UWs, and that's going to be coming in July. So as you look at this screen, you can actually see kind of how direct admissions accelerates the traditional admission process and removes requirements for students to actually have to apply. So in order to make all of this work, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. This just kind of gives you an overview of some of the initiatives and the different steps along the way to get us to that July 2024 delivery of letters. So since August, our team members with our direct implementation team have been making presentations throughout the state to high school counselors at events, including our annual fall counselor workshops, also specific direct admission focus group sessions, and also presented and staffed a table at the annual conference for Wisconsin school counselors. Actually, today, Karina is actually at the Infinite Campus Users Conference as well, working with counselors and the vendors, getting ready for the direct admission process. And behind the scenes, we're also working on technology aspects, training, marketing, and communications as well. In summary, there's a lot of moving parts to implement the direct admissions and a lot of work ahead to get to our July 2024 deadline, but we are really excited about the progress we've made so far, and even more so about the positive feedback that we've been receiving from our conversations that we've been engaging in throughout the state. And we also have to say, you know, how tremendously grateful we are to our DPI colleagues who have been fabulous partners with this, and we're excited to see where we get in January or in July 2024. I also want to thank all of you for all of your support on this initiative as well.
Thank you, Julie. And then we will ask AVP Tracy Davidson to report out as the co-chair on dual enrollments, which is even a little bit more complex. Tracy?
It's very complex. Thanks, Johannes. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to update folks on the current progress of the dual enrollment task force this morning. So as most of you know, President Rothman charged our task force with expanding, using dual enrollment to expand access to higher education in the state, increasing participation rates among Wisconsin students, particularly students who are typically underrepresented in higher education, and also increasing the number of students who take a dual enrollment course and subsequently matriculate at a UW institution. The task force had it was our goal to have very broad representation from multiple stakeholders for the task force. As Johannes pointed out, we had chancellor and provost representation in our executive sponsors, co-leads from Johannes's office in the Office of Academic Affairs. And then also other folks from across the state were involved in the task force, including a couple of folks from the Department of Public Instruction. And as we've talked about before, this was a critical connection that we made, and those folks brought really important perspectives to the work of the task force. We also had one representative from a Wisconsin State CISA agency, and also a number of folks from UW System Administration who brought various expertise to the task force. And then we had a lot of folks from our UW System campuses. We had 6 administrative type folks, either folks who were directors of dual enrollment programs or who served as associate vice chancellors in academic affairs or different other types of administration, and also 6 different faculty members. And that includes Nelu Gensu, who is the current chair of the faculty governance for UW System, and he also brought an important perspective. So it was a great group and a very diverse group of people who brought really diverse perspectives into the conversation that we had about dual enrollment. The task force met a total of 14 times, and those initial meetings were about sort of mapping the really complex landscape and untangling the complex landscape of dual enrollment across the state, and also understanding the barriers to moving forward in the context of the goals that President Rothman had set out for us. The task force also did a good job of, as we navigated barriers and tried to understand that landscape, they did a good job of helping us understand places where additional data would help us untangle things further and have a better picture for how to move forward. The framework, there were sort of themes for context as we did this work that bubbled up again and again, and I sort of threw those up here. And they were recognition of current research and national best practices. In general, everyone agreed we wanted our recommendations to be data-driven as much as possible, and so that was a constant theme as we move forward. There's also recognition of the really complex dual enrollment landscape in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, we basically have 3 functional systems between our University of Wisconsin system, the Wisconsin Technical College system, and our private institutions. They're all doing dual enrollment, and we have state statute, at least a couple different state statutes that are governing that process, as well as concurrent enrollment, sort of private agreements between all of our institutions and our school districts that create a very complex landscape. And so constantly re-examining all of our recommendations in the context of that complex landscape was really important. in that context, looking at policy and statute, strengths and barriers, and where they're not helping us. And also centering the quality of dual enrollment experiences for students, particularly understanding the ways that our accrediting agency, HLC requirements are factoring into how dual enrollment unfolds in the state. So those were all constant themes that we were revisiting. The task force meetings, so those were the initial task force meetings. Eventually, we pulled in our consultants from the College and High School Alliance and the National Alliance Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, which is a concurrent enrollment accrediting agency. And they brought broad expertise in concurrent enrollment policy and concurrent enrollment implementation. They also had what I felt was a really important national perspective on what's happening with concurrent enrollment in other states. And many states are facing many of the same barriers that we're facing. And they were really able to educate us on what's happening in other states to sort of navigate some of those barriers. We were able to educate them on the really complex environment in Wisconsin. And so between the broad expertise we had in the room and the different perspectives we brought, we had really rich conversations that ultimately informed the recommendations that ended up in the final report about how to move forward. So the final report will include that summary of the Wisconsin landscape. It'll draw a picture of some of the barriers in the state for moving forward with dual enrollment, and makes a number of recommendations about how to navigate some of those barriers. It also makes those recommendations on both a level of University of Wisconsin system as also on the level of the state of Wisconsin. So next steps for this project will be continued vetting of the report. The report is close to its very final form, and we'll continue to vet it, of course. We want to bring the report to our executive sponsors and have our leads have a conversation with our executive sponsors about the context for the recommendations, answer any questions, and of course get their impact so that can be incorporated into the final report. And then Johannes, I think, will take the report to President Rothman, and I imagine it will be shared out from there as President Rothman sees fit with additional leadership across the system. And then at that point, the task force will take direction from leadership about how to move forward.
Thank you, Tracy. Then our last.
I'm actually going to save that for after lunch, Ben, so you have more time to think about. And we'll also take questions, and Vice President Brandt is not off the hook yet. So lunch, everyone, and we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock for the continuation of this very interesting. I wonder if that. And just like we never left, we're back again. Mr. Passmore, please take over. You have the floor.
Thank you, Regent President. Let me go ahead and get the presentation up.
All right, sounds good.
So we still wait. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Well, first, let me thank you. Actually, it does make a good break with the pieces that were from academic affairs for academic and student affairs before, because what I have to present is a little bit different. It is actually kind of a finished product, and it fits into the kind of broader theme of our strategic plan, in that the desire of the Regents the desire of system to more effectively engage with the Regents in processes of academic program planning and workforce development. This specifically came out of a request by Regent Weatherly, as chair of the Education Committee, to get more insight into kind of the ongoing addition, planning for the addition, suspension, planning for the end of different programs. And what we really realized was that there was a break between when all that was going on and when the board actually saw the information about that, which tended to fall at the end of the year unless a special request was made in a single report. So what we've done is created an academic program planning dashboard, and this was done with the help of the Office of Academic Affairs, specifically Diane Trace and Shabnan Schmidt and Todd Bailey out of my office. And they created something that was granular, very much up to date. So we will be updating this in advance of each board meeting so that you will in fact have to the last day that we can get away with it, the most up-to-date information we have on where program planning is. All right, let me go ahead and go to the dashboard. This dashboard will be, and we include both in this presentation, but we will also include in board materials going forward, a link to this particular dashboard. As you can see, it is simply on our OPAR page now. Why don't we go to full screen? I think we can just go from there. What it does is it allows you to, and I'm aware that it's a little difficult to read this, but the top line here is all of those programs that are approved to plan. Let's see if I can see where I am on this screen. I don't seem to have, so let me just call out to, there we go. If you'll drift over that approved to plan, that first bar on the top there, what we see is for each of these actions, approved to plan, that is to say that this is even before the board sees any of this material. This is merely the campuses have been moved forward into a process where they are putting together a proposal that might come before the board at a later date. Below it is authorized. And what you're seeing is the pop out there is the number of programs authorized by the board over the course of the last year, broken down by individual institution. And if you continue down the page to suspended, then we have suspended, eliminated, and I won't go through all of these, but the bottom category is one where we have renamed or redirected programs. This is one of the, it's a good example of the kind of level of detail that our colleagues in academic affairs deal with all the time. The managing the academic program array is quite complicated, but what we tried to do was take this to essentials, what you really needed to know to effectively manage from the position within the board. If we could go to the second tab, overview by UW institution. We can also do a breakdown. We have breakdowns here that get considerably more granular for each of the individual institutions. On the right-hand side of the page are a series of pull-down menus, and we won't go through these, but you can break it down by individual institution. You can break it down by the specific action. And I think most importantly, you can break it down by area. So we'll be able to say in a single look, what institutions have added programs in engineering, what programs have been added in education and the like. All of this is probably at the level of information that the board members would typically want to see as you're just kind of generally thinking about this. But if we go to the third tab on here, we also provide you with as detailed information as you could possibly want, where it breaks down the specifics, when these things were created, the type of degree, and all of these other things, again, sortable by all of the same sorts of characteristics that we've already talked about. And the intention here is to take what is essentially a very much a bottom-up process. This is coming from faculty members proposing programs in departments to their colleges, to the universities, up to system level. We kind of really utilize the intellectual power of our entire system. But what it does is create a very confusing field for y'all to effectively manage. And what we're hoping is we've managed to pull this together in a way that will give you insight into those areas and allow you to more effectively look at program array and help use it to manage towards more effective kind of workforce development, program development, and the like. I will stop there. I promise to keep this to 2 minutes. It seems after, waiting through lunch, it's a lot of buildup for not a big payoff, but that's what I have for you today.
Well, we'll be the judge of that, right? Are there any questions from regents or comments on any of the presenters seated at the table? Yes, Regent Tyler.
Well, this is a particularly exciting presentation for me. Thank you very much. Dual enrollment, direct admissions, you know, these are really critical issues, I think, for our future and for the future students and citizens. The one thing I might add, and I don't want to pile on, but as we look at direct enrollments, I think a great next step would be to look at technical college graduates and letting them know there's a continuation of your path, and this is what it is. And I certainly, DPI is where the bulk of, our population comes from. So that absolutely is the best place to start. But I think once that matures, I would hope the next step would be to, go after that next population that needs encouragement to take that next step. So, but thank you very much. I really appreciate your work and commend you for it.
Yes, Regent Cruiser.
Honest, if we have some high school districts that are contiguous to another state, how do we get into their jurisdiction if that's possible?
I have the art of delegation, so I'm gonna.
Ask the person who's been in the state for less than 5 months. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea to explore. So I will take it back to the implementation team. I think we have to be strategic about that, given reciprocity, given that we also leaned heavily on Minnesota to stand up our program in terms of direct admission and everything, but it is, I already wrote it down after we spoke at lunch, and so we'll tackle it at our next meeting.
That's great. I appreciate that very much. I am just so thrilled of how rapidly this is getting deployed, and it's going to make a dramatic impact in our area. And anytime I can poach something from Lake County, I would love to do it.
We would
Coach away. Regent Underly.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. Excellent presentation. I'm really excited about everything that you guys are doing. On the dual enrollment side of things. So what I'm hearing is, there's things out there now about like truancy, right? Especially with high school kids coming out of COVID, they're not engaged in school. What we have learned is that they like school, they like to see their teachers, they like their friends, but they just don't want to be there all day, right? So have you heard anything from other states when you've been investigating the dual enrollment piece, Tracy, on how maybe they're incorporating these opportunities like dual enrollment or apprenticeship or work, community service in order to restructure that experience to keep kids at school?
No, I haven't. We didn't chat about that piece specifically, but it's fascinating. It's interesting, and I think we'll go ahead and talk to our consultants about that. Actually, we're still in contact with them, so I think that's really interesting.
All right, Regent Weatherly.
Thank you for the great update. With direct admission, I think that we hope that it's the first step, that not only does it come with, we want you at these schools, but here's how we can help you pay for this and how you can make it affordable. We're not quite there yet, towards frankly what Minnesota is leading with, but what are the incremental steps that we can do to talk about affordability when we're approaching these students? I'm just thinking about the Wisconsin grant, other predictors of likelihood of access to financial aid, like school lunch program, et cetera. And I'm stealing an idea from someone, I just forget who told me about it, but apparently there's a huge correlation between someone qualifying for the school lunch program and qualifying for the Wisconsin grant. Using that data to at least indicate to students that more than likely there's dollars available for you.
So one of the things that will happen with the direct admission is it's going to come really early in the process. So this year, you might know that the FAFSA is delayed. Normally it's in October. It's going to be delayed probably till December 31st at 11:59 p.m. this year. But so that FAFSA really is going to be critical in terms of being able to offer students all that they're eligible for. We need to understand what their need is and figure out then how the individual universities that have offered admission can meet that need. So I do think there are proactive things that can be done at the individual university level as well as at the system level to try to drive FAFSA completion and try to support FAFSA completion, because that in itself is going to really give us information that will allow us to try to be able to meet the needs of those students. But you're right, there's other things that we need to do in terms of really kind of building off the potential of direct admission. If we can identify ways to, put in place a promise program again, I think that would really be able to help make a real difference for many, many students that we're really trying to approach and target with this program. But it's kind of a collaborative approach that really does need the FAFSA in the mix as well. Absolutely.
Yes, Regent Atwell and then Regent Peters.
Thank you. Over my years on the board, I've expressed a great deal of concern about whether we're moving fast enough to really prepare our regional comprehensives in particular to meet the needs of the future of the state. And at the time, President Rothman launched the strategic planning initiative. I was quite forward in expressing to him my skepticism of whether the bottom-up approach would move at the pace that we need. I'm not ready to entirely repent of my my expressions, but I want to acknowledge that it's very evident the energy that's gone into this, the sincerity of it, the cooperation across campuses, the tone of let's face these things together, even though they're hard. So I've been receiving some executive coaching about how to be more affirming. Just kidding. I'm too old to change, but I think I really think I think there's a great need. The state needs us in particular, and Milwaukee has its challenges. Madison is Madison, but our regional comprehensives, in order to figure out how to face and shape the future of the state, we got to keep the pedal to the metal and face the hard decisions that we find hard to face. But I'm really grateful for the work you've done and pleased with the presentation. And repentance too strong a word, but cautiously optimistic. So thank you.
Yes, the confessional will be open in the back. Bob,
I'm very familiar with that.
Okay. Regent Peterson.
This is why we're here, is for what you guys are doing with this is what it's all about. And I am very impressed that you guys have come up with this direct deal but I am a little concerned about the 18.5% that are not going to be getting this in the high schools. Who are they?
So we're going to get them. We're just going to take a little bit longer to get them. So our plan is to make sure that it's available to everybody in the state. The way for us to move as quickly as we are is to leverage the student information systems and work directly with the vendors. And we've had great collaboration. As I mentioned, we actually might get a third. I'm being cautiously optimistic, but we might get a third in phase 1, which will expand that closer up to 90. And then it takes a little bit more one-on-one work and work with technology to work at the high school levels if they don't have those large student information systems vendors, because then it becomes less of an automated process and more of a kind of hands-on process to be able to make it happen. But we're committed to making it happen. It just might take a little bit longer. But the cool thing about this process is that we're learning something new every day, and we're problem solving every day. And I'm sure we're going to gain efficiencies along the way as well.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Regent Underwood.
This is my last comment because again, it's like very exciting. But just to piggyback on what Regent Atwell was saying as well, yes, our state needs us, but ultimately this is about the kids and the lives that we're going to be changing, whether it's direct admissions, dual enrollment, the academic programs that we offer. I mean, it's about them and their future, which is our future. And that is what is so cool about all this. So thank you.
Very cool. Yes, Regent Tyler.
So I have a question about the kid that doesn't get a direct admission offer, which I'd be that kid. I'd like to plant the seed And that is, our technical colleges, take everybody. And if they need to go through, GED or some other, process prior to getting into a program, we take everybody. So I would hope that someday, and I realize this is, out in the future, that the university reaches out to every high school student and says, there's a path for you. And in those cases where the path is clear through the university, you make that case. But when it's not, you say, here's a path that may fit for you, where you could go through Madison College, or you could go through some other process to access higher education. Because I really, those kids that are successful, they're going to be successful. I really would like to get those kids that aren't on a successful path on a successful path. So I realize that's harder, and I realize it probably takes more effort, and it probably means coming through another system like the technical colleges before they come here. But I'd really like to plant that kind of in your things to consider down the road.
Yeah, it's already there. So actually, as part of the task force charge, looking at our transfer direct admission was part of that process. It's going to be more complicated, a little bit more timely to be able to kind of accomplish that. But I do think that you're going to be surprised by how many students get that offer letter, because as I mentioned, universities, especially those with the branch campuses, they're participating sometimes at the branch and the main campuses as well. And so many of our universities are accepting the majority of students who apply. So that's already there. And then also, even if a student doesn't get a letter, it doesn't preclude them from applying. And so that'll be made clear in their acceptance letter. So that's part of it. If the university they were thinking about isn't on that list, they can still apply. We'll be working with the high schools to also make sure that they realize that we can find a place for them at a UW. So that is part of our process.
Great. Any other questions or comments from colleagues at the table? Yes, Regent Menege.
Just a short. This is from the mind of Regent Weather, who suggested this idea of education, and then you implemented it. You worked so hard on it. This is an example of how everything should go in this system this quickly. We can do it. Why take so long when we can get it done quickly? So thank you for all of your work.
Yeah, it's been impressive, and I want to echo what Regent Atwell said. It's just wonderful to see such passion surrounding work like this. It's appreciated. Johannes, did you want to say something?
I just want to say last, but thank you for all the support. That's very encouraging. As you could hear, we have a lot of energy. We work hard, but we have a lot of fun too. We enjoy working together, all together as a team. We have a good taskmaster, but he's a human. And that is an important point that I just want to share again with the Regents. He worked with different deadlines than higher education was used to, but it turns out that it's working. We are driven with a goal and a mission, but with deadlines and say, make it happen. So I just thought I want to share with you also how we work together in our system and with the campuses.
Thank you very much for that. All right, we will release you in favor of Vice President Brandt and his group.
Just so Jack tells me to.
Yes, we are learning everything.
Exactly.
All right, Jeff, you're on.
Thank you, Regents. Thank you very much for having us this afternoon. Before I begin, I just want to echo something Johannes said this morning. The strategic plan and the aggressive speed of the strategic plan, as I look at my boss, has forced us to really, really collaborate a lot more on system admin. And I think that's been a wonderful thing. It's also forced us to bring the campuses in earlier. So I think the result of the strategic plan, not only the actions we've taken, but the processes we've created to do this is created a much better situation for all of us. So we're really excited about that. So we're here to talk about our branding campaign. I know there's been a lot of questions about that, but I want to give you a little bit of the background on how we got here. Jack's team really led this, and obviously Jack's here to answer questions. And then we're going to turn it over to Idella to talk about the excitement of the Tech Hub and the exciting opportunities that's going to prepare for us. So beginning in June of 2022, when President Rothman joined us, we organized a work group with our universities to discuss how we can better position the UW system publicly. System-led discussions with representatives from all the universities through the fall of 2022. The discussion centered around ideas, approaches, and objectives. Higher education is nationally facing challenges. For decades, we've kind of rested on our laurels, especially here in Wisconsin, and left our universities to kind of compete and market themselves individually. Meanwhile, the absence of a branding effort really doesn't mean you don't have a brand. It just means that others are defining it for you. I would say that there is an active campaign to brand us as something we're not. And we have not fought back because, again, we've had so much success and support through the years. So the work group established an understanding that something needed to be done. I think everyone agreed something needed to be done. And the rebranding initiative was approved by the board last December. In January of 23, we brought an independent party in to do research and make recommendations on what changes needed to be made. So we're at the next slide then, Jack. You got her. There you go. So the first thing we identified was that we need to have a collective identity that would resonate with the public. UW system has a brand that is either non-existent or confused with UW Madison. We also found that UW system label is abstract and confusing. It obstructs rather than highlights the unique universities. The example I often give is if you picked up the newspaper or saw a headline online after the last budget, it would have said the UW system was cut 32 million. No, the universities, and all of them will vouch for this, were cut 32 million. And it made it look like the system administration took the cut when really that cut was felt on our campuses. So removing the word system made a more direct path to the universities, which are really the most important thing here. We believe that the new name will actually put us in better footing to share those stories as well, coming directly from the universities. Now, again, the word system has been just dismissed because it is bureaucratic. And whether people knew what system was or thought we were part of Madison, it just wasn't cutting through and it was becoming kind of a derivative. They would just say, oh, system does this, system does that. So trying to move away from that is something we think is important. We also changed our standalone colors, and I'm really excited about the colors. We'll talk about that in a second, but the red was too close to Madison. It looked like a division of UW Madison, and that was also confusing folks as well. So the University of Wisconsin's is new. It's important to note that our legal name, though, will remain the UW system. And our general counsel, who was clear on this, statute has not been changed. Our legal name will continue to be the University of Wisconsin system, but this is more of our brand facing the public. The other benefit of moving to the plural of universities of Wisconsin is it plays off of the great reputation of our flagship, but it offers up the other 12. The University of Wisconsin is associated with UW-Madison in many cases, but if we can take a little advantage of that and spread it out to the other 12, we think that's a good thing. Next one. So as you can see, we will do business as the University of Wisconsin with a mark of a Wisconsin map that meshes our key messaging points of pride and opportunity, and we believe will resonate with Wisconsin. It's clear that one of the things we saw in our research was that people didn't see us as connected. UW Parkside and UW Stevens Point were just two universities. But the reality is we're a constellation of connected universities. And the work you just heard about before is an example of how important that is. These universities are connected to each other in a lot of ways, academically, financially, culturally, so many ways. So we found in our research that there was no clear understanding of that. So what people knew about their universities within the UW system was almost by happenstance. You knew somebody who went to River Falls if you were from Central Wisconsin, but you knew about Stevens Point because it's down the road. And that was limiting our ability to kind of tell the stories of the impact these universities can have on the entire state. The constellation map on your right exemplifies that. It's who we are. You can kind of see us in a different way that I think really tells a better story than we've shown before. The concept tested really well with parents and students alike. And I think people felt not only the opportunity, but I think there's some pride here too. Look at this great system of universities that we fund. And we'll talk about pride in a little bit more. Next one. This is my favorite part of this. The colors aspect, I think, is really going to give us an opportunity to highlight the distinct differences between our universities. System red is no more. And instead, when we're going to co-brand with Eau Claire, we're going to be blue. When we're going to co-brand with Superior or Milwaukee, we're going to be gold. we can actually take more of a side approach. Instead of being the star, our brand will be alongside theirs, playing off of their color. We don't have a sports team. We don't have those things. You guys do, the campuses do. So our goal is to really make it about them. And I think the use of color is a really cool opportunity to do that. One of the things we found that was kind of troubling internally was only 5 of our 13 universities promote that they're part of a system. And for this to work, we need to be seen as that constellation. And we think one way to do that is to really highlight the universities and give them a logo that can be easily folded into their work and isn't something standalone that almost contrasts what they're doing. The one way to describe it is we started this thinking we would have to have an umbrella approach to this, like the system down. Quickly threw that aside and said, we're going to build a foundation that the campuses can hopefully build on and leverage. So the next one. So I don't want you to read this whole thing, but it is kind of the theme for what we're trying to do. You know, maybe I'll just read it quick since it's small print. It's easier to prepare for the future when we are the ones who create it. In Wisconsin, our public universities are places where innovation takes shape and takes flight. Universities of Wisconsin offer a constellation of campuses and a network of opportunities to make a difference, to make an impact, to make a better life. Our universities are your universities. Together, we are working hard to ensure we are all ready for whatever comes next, expanding the horizons of what's possible, and then helping to make it happen. 13 universities, one mission to make Wisconsin future ready. That's the theme that you're going to hear. It won't be that same language in everything we do, but that's kind of the background narrative that we really want to push out in terms of talking about where we want to go with the new brand. These are some examples of what this could look like. We've used these for the opportunity tours. These are very much examples. They're not going to look exactly like this, but these are some ways we can leverage this new brand publicly in a way that not only highlights what is typically the UW system, but really puts a focus on our universities. I think that's it. So happy to answer any questions, comments, even criticisms.
Anyone? Yes, Regent Cologne.
Thank you, Regent Walsh. Just a couple questions. Who was involved in the development of the new brand internally, as well as external stakeholders?
Sure.
If any?
So we had representatives from every campus. Jack led the unit, the task force that took this on. We had hired BVK was an external hire that we made through an existing contract UW system had to come in and help with the research aspect of it. But a lot of it really ran internally through Jack's team.
Were external stakeholders such as donors, students, and others involved?
Absolutely.
Sure. So as Jeff mentioned, back in June of 22, we asked the chancellors to identify people to serve on the marketing and communications work group. So those people kind of built the ideas initially. And then last January, at that point, we decided we needed to do something. We wanted to do something. So at that point, we hired BVK and Baker Tilly, who actually does branding, to basically focus on research and assessment. And as part of that, we did a survey of 1,500 Wisconsin residents through a survey center. We also engaged with focus groups, so people who touch students and touch parents. So like enrollment officers, marketing officers, guidance counselors. And then we also did external and internal one-on-one interviews. So we interviewed people in the legislature, we interviewed business people throughout the community. So those were more extensive qualitative interviews. So we did quantitative and qualitative research that we completed back in May. And then after that, we basically used that as the foundation for what you're seeing here today.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions, comments? All right. Oh, yes, Regent Underly.
I do have a question. I guess as a regent, I was a little surprised to find out about it towards the end. So I was curious in the process, did the inclusion of regents come up at all?
One of the things we struggled with, and you're not the only regent who has expressed this concern, is we really did want to have an opportunity to bring the board in earlier. Our concern was, quite frankly, if we did this in a public setting where we discussed different options and things like that, we could run out of steam before we even get out the door. It's one of the challenges of, I think, in an open setting where suddenly there's a negative pushback on the idea, or there's a pushback on one certain logo we end up going with. So it was a challenge. We wanted to have more region input, but the way to do it was just not clear to us in terms of a way that we could actually manage it. Does that make, I hope that makes sense, but I wish we would have maybe done some smaller work, like maybe some work groups with folks beforehand. I think that's one of the things we maybe missed.
Yeah, I think including us in the work groups or the focus groups would not have been a big issue. And that's just me.
No, that's a good question. That's a good point.
Regent Rye.
For council, will we get some guidance? Because as you mentioned, our name hasn't changed. Our branding has changed. So guidance for meetings, for communication, when to use our legally appointed name versus our brand. From a governance standpoint, just understanding that even when we grab the mic, what are we supposed to say?
Yes.
Thank you.
Say yes anytime you grab them. Yes, Regent Weatherly.
So this is step one, as I understand it, of an overall branding campaign that we will see both in billboards, posters, and hopefully in places that younger people go to. How are we going to engage high school students? And I ask this for a particular reason. In the survey, the most interesting thing that I saw in the survey results was of parents and grandparents that were willing to make a recommendation. 80% would recommend a UW system school or a Universities of Wisconsin school to their grandparent or kid. Yet, at the same time, we have a participation rate less than 30%. So for me, it looks from those data points that we have the older population, the recommenders, presumably the guidance counselors, saying these are good schools, these are good opportunities, you should go. This spans across geographies, political parties, it varies, but we're still talking north of 60% in all the subgroups.
Yep.
It seems that we have a high school kid problem and convincing them about the value. So how are we going to engage high school kids in figuring out not only how we should market to them, but also how we need to change to meet their needs? Because this is a sort of a two-way street, right? It's not just we're this, you need to change for us and let you tell us why we are what you need, but we need to change for what their needs are. So complicated question. Yep. How are you going to engage high school students?
Let me try to answer that in a couple of ways. First off, I think Chancellor Schmidt might have told us this when we were presenting to him once. The enrollment challenges are going to be handled with the campuses. They're the ones who are going to directly engage with high school students. They are the ones that are the best presented to do it. What we have to do is change the public perception of higher education so that people just generally feel better about higher education. You are correct that our public schools are relatively popular, but the concept of going to college in the population writ large has lost some of its, is definitely on the downward trend. So we have to kind of raise the prominence of higher education in general, especially public higher education, and that direct engagement needs to happen primarily at the universities. However, I do, and you and I have talked about this a number of times, I think there are opportunities for us to more directly engage with high school students. And I think there's opportunities potentially with partnership with DPI for us to do that as well. So I do think some surveying of some high school students about college writ large and about their local colleges that they know about, I think would be very beneficial. We haven't figured out the best way to do that yet. But I think there are avenues for us to do that. So I'd like to do a little bit more research on the high school student, but this is really, think of this as I don't want to use a military reference. It seems like a bad idea right now, but this is the air cover for the groundwork that the campuses are doing.
So before we start spending money on the public campaign, are we going to engage high school students in a meaningful way?
High school students were included in some of the research that's been done already. So Jack and I,
the only research I saw was stuff on taglines and on the mark.
I think we have to integrate our branding efforts with the marketing campaigns that are at our universities, right? So what we're doing is branding, which is creating an emotional connection to what we provide in higher education. And that opens the door for people to have a better awareness and better receptive to go into the universities. Then that will help inform the messaging, the marketing component that I think our universities are doing, which is why we will continue to work with them on those aspects. So to a certain degree, I think we have to work better hand in hand in coordinating those aspects. Because a lot of the stuff that you're getting from students and parents, and you probably saw it too, is why don't they want to go? And they talk about affordability and workforce issues to a certain degree that from systems perspective, now I've been here 6 years, we've been talking about fairly ad nauseum. We're not really moving the needle on that, and that needs to be done very directly in a marketing aspect. And our universities, as part of our research, are in that space right now. What we need to do is help affect the larger brand, which for us is like pride and opportunity, because you saw the data as well. People have this kind of sense of pride of what the universities of Wisconsin provide. We need to leverage that and make the most of it so that they do take a fresh look at the opportunities that are here at all of our universities. That led to our name change. That will lead and build out kind of a future campaign. And then the campaign, if we do it right, Regent Weatherly, will be connected to the efforts that we're doing at our individual universities, as well as, and I don't have time for this, but what we're doing at formerly System now that the Office of Academic and Student Affairs is working on. So this is the first time since I've been here that we are integrating with them in terms of the things that they want to do. So the work that we're doing in rebranding can be captured in the efforts that they're doing to bring students into the fold. So for the first time, you're going to see the branding efforts involved in the work that they do in direct admissions. And most importantly, in UW Help.
Yes.
So UW Help, I think you guys are a little familiar with it, is a concept that has been around for a long time, where they basically engage and direct students to our universities for the purposes of recruitment and enrollment, right? They didn't have the air cover before. And we used the UW Help website, which we tested on as well. People don't know what it is. We have a powerful domain in wisconsin.edu that we provide information about the Regents and the org charts. Those are not valuable and those are not student focused. So as part of the strategic plan, we wanted to be student focused. We're doing a lot of internal work to reposition ourselves, hopefully at the beginning of next year, that will complement an advocacy effort that will use the power of the domain of wisconsin.edu to basically be a resource for students and families to learn more about the distinctiveness of all of our universities. So I think that's where the rubber hits the road in terms of how do we communicate that to students and parents in an effective way. And then we have to work until that point to figure out what actually matters to them, because I think a lot of that work is being done at the universities, and leveraging and integrating those will be critical to our success.
And I think the way it's been so far is online help and wisconsin.edu and the universities.
Online too.
Yeah, online help. They're all 4 different buckets, almost completely separate from each other, even though we are one system. So one of the things we've worked really hard with, and Johannes' team has been fantastic with, is it's all got to be wisconsin.edu. So before we can even talk about what resonates with students, we have to have our act together in terms of what we're presenting. You know what I mean? Because right now we're presenting a bunch of different random pockets. But if we can tighten that up so it's wisconsin.edu and that's what we're presenting, then we can start critiquing and tweaking that message to get at people. But the heavy lift is getting it all kind of shoved into one box. UW Help had its own website. Like it wasn't even part of us. It was like a contracted organization. It's not their fault. That's just how they were set up. But now we're trying to bring it all together. So that's I think we're at that stage of it right now. And that's making sure we have a clear package to share with you.
Got it. So just to be clear, are you going to engage high school students before we expand the?
I think the answer is, will UW University of Wisconsin administration be directly engaging high school students? Not likely. I think we want to rely on our universities who do it on a daily basis because they have a better sense of what's going on. So I don't think that's the answer you want, but I think that's really where the work is going to happen when it comes to talking to high school students. And we want to rely on them and not get in their space too. That's part of the challenge here too.
But we will integrate with them. Yeah. And I think I wouldn't say outright no to that, because if we can be helpful in that space for them in terms of their efforts right now, and they see value in what we're doing to push students to their universities, we will definitely take on that task. So we will continue to meet with the representatives from the universities. And if they see value in that for system to do it, because I think they regularly do it from their aspect. But if they see value in system doing it or providing some type of best practices as our other universities do, we will leverage that and utilize it in the forthcoming campaign. That I can tell you. So we will keep you posted as that develops.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Regent Tyler.
Not sure how to approach this, but I'm not sure. I'm not a marketing person, but from my perspective, I'm not sure that people are not valuing higher education. I think that people still recognize the value of education. I believe the disconnect is not that people undervalue higher education. It's just, we've got a lot of competition out there. I see a tremendous amount of competitive institutions reaching out to high schoolers, to parents, whether it's NDSU, whether it's Southern New Hampshire, whether it's Arizona State, whether it's Phoenix, and the military and employers. I mean, you go into a high school and you count logos, just count logos. And I would venture to say, and maybe Joe, you can, weigh in on this. I think you're gonna see a ton of employer logos, and you're gonna see little or no University of Wisconsin, Universities of Wisconsin, UW System Wisconsin, or local university logos. Maybe I'm wrong. The schools that I'm going into, and admittedly, it's only a dozen or so. I'm not seeing, they're in the counselor's office, but the students know that the counselor's office is for the truant kids and the kids that have other issues, and that's not for kids that are successful. So they're not seeing our logos. So I don't know. Joe, am I off base here?
No, I think you're onto something, but what I've seen is that the regional campuses, the comprehensive, have those good connections already to the schools within their, I don't want to call it attendance area, but just let's stay in their region. So like in my case, I was in Lafayette in Iowa County. We had a strong connection to UW-Platteville. And that was because UW-Platteville also did a really good job with strengthening the relationships of those schools, hosting, tours, but it also, I think you're onto something also. It's the capacity of the high school too. Like the counselors, I think, are stretched. They've got lots of other things other than college admissions and scholarships. But one area that I think that we could do a better job, and this is on the Department of Public Instruction, is we do have a state law called academic and career planning. And with the direct admissions, I think, and with the WTCS, I think it's really promising to consider how can we connect the kid that's interested in, let's say, engineering or plumbing or whatever it is, or creative writing or photography, and give them all their options. Whether it's a tech college and a UW, both through direct enrollment, or I'm sorry, through a dual enrollment. I mean, they have so many opportunities. We could do a better job of connecting all of them so that they can see that they have a future with a Wisconsin institution. But you're not wrong, Mark. I think people are so aggressive out of state because they want the out of state tuition dollars too. But we can do a better job of linking them to Wisconsin schools.
And I would add that this is all integrated, right? Like the work, like Jack was saying, the work we're doing to kind of come up with this brand will help make the UW Health, I think it's going to be Enroll UW or something like that. Apply UW. We want that to be in those schools aggressively. And right now, because even if you saw the UW Health logo, you might not know that it's us. So part of this is giving a more consistent brand and then being more aggressive with how we engage with high schools. Absolutely. I think you are onto a problem that we've had for a while. And I think this is, again, giving us more clear messaging into those high schools is what we're trying to do.
Okay, Regent Rock.
Two comments, one that you're not gonna like. I don't like anybody to like actually, but I think it's got to be said at some point. But one is just on the whole branding thing. I mean, this is something I've obviously have experience with in my day job. It can be very expensive. It can be very time consuming, and it's very hard to justify an ROI. So it's going to be scrutinized and understand that. So we're going to want to see ongoing efforts to make sure that, the expense side of the brand change, which is never cheap. We're making sure that we're being very purposeful and growing the brand. Second thing is, and obviously the brand's done, it's rolled out, it's announced. So this is probably not the right time to say this, and I understand the perspective of wanting to distance ourselves from UW and the red and understanding that, but it is our flagship and it does carry a lot of benefit throughout the country. And I do believe in the halo effect of a single brand benefiting other brands. So let's just be cautious in trying to distance too much from a brand that is really associated with the state. I think I've taught my kids how to do this pretty effectively right now. And it's powerful.
Yep.
And not to disrespect my own alma mater at UWM or any of the comprehensives, but the halo effect of UW cannot be undermined or underestimated. And I think we have to find a balance there.
And this is one of the challenges. I'll just kind of answer the second part first. Minnesota did something very similar, did a huge branding lift a few years ago. And they decided all the campuses would be branded the same. They did an umbrella. They were, UMD looks the same color scheme that University of Minnesota has. They really made it all one thing to build off of that. That was an option, but that wasn't going to fly, as you could probably imagine with our campuses, right? So we had to come up with something a little different. I still think we get the halo effect. But it's definitely, there was two sides to the halo effect, right? I think people saw it as something separate in Madison, that it wasn't even connected to the other schools. Hopefully this can actually strengthen the halo effect on the line. Believe me, the concern you expressed there very much was on our minds. The first part of your question is something that's important to us too. We're not in a situation where we can continue to pump money into a campaign that we don't have ROI. So it's on us to continue to monitor the perception of higher education in the state. If this doesn't help move the needle on that, then it's not worth continuing. And so we're going to have to measure that through surveys, focus groups down the line, and make sure that we're actually moving the needle on how people see public higher education.
Just really quickly, I know I'll wrap up, but in terms of the ROI question, absolutely correct. One of the things that we looked at the beginning of the process is the non-admits from UW-Madison. They have dropped off a lot. The non-admits and where they go to other 12 other universities has fallen by 50% over the last 5 years. So people recognize Madison, and Madison has a well-established brand, but we've lost that effect to have non-admits. We understand that they're going to look at other options, but to have a 50% decrease in that number to our other universities is dramatic and significant. So that was a very concerted effort with the universities of Wisconsin, which is a subtle change, but to drop the word system because it didn't really have any brand, and whatever brand was associated was negative. But to put it out there in a sense that we could take advantage of the halo effect at Madison, but then inform them of our other 12 universities. Because I would argue that our data was abundantly clear that that was not happening, and that was playing out in our 12 universities in terms of the non-admits. So as we looked at metrics, in terms of what we want to accomplish long-term, that is one of the metrics.
Thank you.
Regent Weatherly.
This one will be a shorter question. As best I can tell, the newspapers of records in Wisconsin still refer to us as UW system. What are we doing to avoid confusion that we are? I looked it up beforehand, so I know it to be true. So they still refer to us as UW system. So when people are reading newspaper articles in Journal Sentinel, Wisconsin State Journal, that we are referred to as UW system. What are we doing to counter the confusion that could be caused by that? By we're saying we're universities of Wisconsin, yet the newspapers of record still refer to us as UW system.
So I turned my head around to see who was here from our friendly media, and I think they'll get there. I think TV has already done it. They've done it more so than I expected. It's going to take time. So, I mean, we really haven't, I called it funnily, like we were going to do a soft rollout because we were getting to the point where people knew what we were doing and we wanted to basically share it so it wouldn't just, and we did that in October. But when we start being more aggressive and asserting ourselves in terms of the universities of Wisconsin next year, as part of a comprehensive effort, I think they will take it and use it as universities of Wisconsin. I think you're seeing that predominantly in all of the television and video media right now. I think you're seeing that picked up. So we're not even a month into this right now, and it's actually gone a lot faster than I expected. We presented a branding guide to the media upon our announcement. I expect that they will get there over the course of time, but it will require us to basically brand ourselves effectively for us to be known in the marketplace as that. And I would argue if we get to that point, and even this discussion in and of itself is informative to the public at large, because they're getting to know that we have 13 universities. Literally in the data, that is the most important thing we need to communicate right now. We have 13 universities, and we are going to take advantage of the halo of UW-Madison, but the people on one side of the state need to know that all the opportunities throughout the state, and then they need to be proud of all these opportunities that we can convey visually. So we have a lot of work to do in that space, but I'm confident that they'll get there over the course of time.
Like TV and AP have it's been pretty good. Like, we've been really pleased with it. And again, the story that ran last week was the universities of Wisconsin, who got cut 32 million, are trying to get that money back to do economic development work, or higher impact or workforce development work. That was the story. The system wasn't mentioned. So we got a couple nuts to crack yet, but I think we've made good progress.
And I'll just pile onto that. That is worth a lot. When they're saying the 32 million cut to the universities of Wisconsin as opposed to UW system, I believe that that is a significant difference that you saw in the media play out this week that will help us over the course of time. Because as Jeff introduced this, they're not cutting a bureaucratic wing of, a few hundred people sitting in at Van Nuys. These cuts or fundings are real and they're happening at our 13 universities. And the better we can project that, the truth, and resonate that with the public, I think the better our universities will be served over the course of time. And I think success, number one, was what you saw.
Thank you.
Great. I think we're going to close this portion of the subject. I believe you have one more item.
Absolutely. So Idella is going to, as Jay mentioned earlier, has become our Director of Economic and Employer Engagement. And I'll just tell this quick story before we let Idella go. You enjoy quicker. We had agreed to hire Idella. She came from the Center of Technology Commercialization. Great resume, perfect, really excited about the hire. The Tech Hub thing comes up and I call her up and I said, you know how you're going to start in 2 weeks and work here? Can you start tomorrow afternoon and write a grant for the Tech Hub for this EDA grant and get it done in like 3 or 4 weeks, then come back and work for us? And she didn't hesitate. She started laughing. She's like, this sounds fun. Let's do it. So she was not only integral in getting that grant, but she was literally writing it in collaboration with Exact Sciences and a few others. So this is the first time UW, Universities of Wisconsin, have really been on the ground floor of something like this from a statewide effort. This is a statewide grant. And I'm really proud that we were from day one in the mix and we were a huge resource to help get it over the top. And that's no small credit to Idella. So with that, I'll let you talk about the Tech Hub.
Well, thanks for the kind intro. And then I have some slides too to go along with
Should be
this.
next.
Let me do the clicking. Thank you.
Made it one deck. There you go.
There we go. So I really am excited. I'm excited for the discussion that's happening here today because I think a lot of the activities that are happening in Johannes's group, what we've talked about in terms of the branding for 13 unique campuses that have strengths across the entire state, all sort of come into focus through a project like this. Now, my take-home message really is this is the right time. We've done some really cool things in terms of the background that other divisions have done. And so we can deploy that, get the ROI as part of the hub. And there are future opportunities that are coming on board because of other national funding that we can take advantage of. And this Tech Hub is an example that I think we can build on. So today I really want to talk about what is the EDA Tech Hub, our role as part of the consortium that received designation, and the upcoming efforts that are taking place in terms of developing a workforce, a data-driven workforce set of scope of work for the hub, and UW's involvement in that, along with our array of partners across the higher ed ecosystem. So with that, let me just talk about what it is. So this is a designation made possible through the Economic Development Administration. These are awards made possible through the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022, and they're intended to invest in regions with consortia that are focused on key technologies. This is a multi-phase competition, and we've just passed phase 1 of that competition, which was a proposal for the designation. We also submitted a proposal for a strategy development grant to help us work through the strategy, not just in terms of the technology and market strategy, but also the complementary workforce strategy that's associated with the hub. And the next steps are to apply for phase 2 funding, which is up to $75 million with a required match. And I put up the EDA criteria here that we had to compete for or compete against in order to earn designation, so that you can see that this isn't just a focus on the great and awesome technology and collaboration between GE and UW-Madison. This is an opportunity for us to look at the landscape of innovation to market, the opportunity for us to look at diversifying and balancing a unique workforce, and the opportunity to think about new partnerships or ways that we can partner with all of our regional entities that are part of this consortium. So here's the map. We are one of 31 designated tech hubs throughout the nation out of 192 applications. If you're seeing this map, the sort of dark circles represent the designation, but you might notice in Wisconsin that we have a dark circle and a green inside. We are also one of 10 designated regions to also receive a strategy development grant. And the EDA has designated us as one of 5 in the category of advanced biotechnology, precision, and prediction. I'm a biologist by training, so this was a lot of fun to work on. So here is a list of our partners, our consortium partners. EDA did invest in a consortium. So that consortium had requirements that we had to meet in order to be eligible for this EDA designation, including members of institutions for higher education, state and local agencies, industry firms, economic development organizations, labor or workforce training groups. And then this whole initiative is being led by an industry consortium group called BioForward, which represents the biotech industry throughout Wisconsin. The consortium together must make efforts to grow and evolve the STEM workforce, meet the needs of companies and research institutions, and importantly, develop and expand skills-based learning opportunities. And then also to maintain our manufacturing competitiveness, both for today, but also we have to project 10 years into the future for our ability to be globally competitive in this space. Why I'm excited about UW's participation, this whole consortium is focused on the Madison and Milwaukee area. This is just by design and the way the EDA was looking for competitive proposals. But we as a group really wanted the entire state to be able to be involved. And that is made possible because of UW Systems' constellation of campuses and WDC. We're the only consortium members that have statewide reach. And then I have a shout out to us as a woo-woo here. That's my favorite. We made it possible for this tech hub to get the important initial funding in order for us to work through the strategy. President Rothman authorized $100,000 and that was required for us to be able to put in an application. I wrote the grants over a weekend with in consultation with or in collaboration with a consultant, a writing consultant. But I did so also in consultation with a number of our partners, the technical college systems, Department of Workforce Development, and the labor and employer organizations throughout the state. So what's that work? That work is going to allow us to look at what our globally competitive position for this technology in this market space is going to look like. So we get to hire a consulting firm that's on board right now helping us with that work. What I'm most excited about is that we're going to get to run through a facilitated process that's well known in terms of what DWD does and the technical college system does, but it's not something that we do a lot at the four-year campuses, and identifying 3 to 4 job titles with upward mobility and to facilitate skills-based assessments through a process called DACM, and to do that in a way that helps us define the skills that are going to be competitive for the hub and work with our partners to be able to create career pathways and on and off ramps for people to be successful here in the state, and hopefully to bring other people here in the state who want to work in our key technology focus area. And then the last thing, again, I'm also excited about data, is that I get to work with other colleagues to leverage information to be able to tell the unique story about how our campuses are participating and making ready this workforce of the future that's able to take advantage of our competitive position in this key technology area. I'm an office of one human, so I am very thankful to my colleagues in the Division of Academic and Student Affairs. We had to run really quickly, and they provided some excellent guidance on policies and programs and projects that are in their camps that I think will be really instrumental as we work forward in the hub. So, yes, Jeff did say this was fast. So, I came on board at the end of May. This whole set of proposals were due August 15th. We found out about our designation and strategy development grant a couple of weeks ago, October 23rd. And the next big sprint is to try and put in for about 50 to 60 pages so that we can be eligible and competitive for a phase 2 submission. But the work continues because we got that strategy development grant. We're able to continue working very closely with the hub leadership to define what's going to make this region competitive. And so UW agreed to commit 30% of my time to continue to develop the work in the hub. Yes, phase 2 is a definite goal. It's going to be up to $75 million, but we have to come up with a 10% match. So $50 million is the floor, $5 million match that we have to work on before the February deadline. If anybody has some ideas, I'm open. We have 5 to 10 awards. So of the 31, only 5 to 10 of those designated tech hubs will receive some of this money. And it funds a number of different areas that are really going to be strategic focal points for this hub, including workforce all the way down to technology maturation. And we have to meet the efforts of making sure we have a competitive workforce today and into the future that will have we have to demonstrate that there will be concrete, quantifiable job targets for them. Yes, we have competition. So I'm just going to put this up here. There are 11 other designated tech hubs of the 31 that have some focus in the biotechnology space. So we're anticipating we're competing with them or some of them. We're not doing this alone. We're part of a consortium, and we have a really excellent leader in Wendy Harris, who is now the Regional Innovation Officer, the term that was defined by EDA. She was hired through a competitive process that we did over the summer. She has 33 years of experience through GE Healthcare, has worked with UW-Madison, is an engineer and understands the space really well. She answers to the steering committee, of which we are a member now of that steering committee, and Aaron Olver is the director or is the chair now of that steering committee. And all of this is being managed in a great way by Lisa Johnson, who is the CEO of the industry organization Bio4 that is the lead entity of this whole effort. And you don't have to read all the little words here, but what I want to say is that we've begun that work. The moment that we heard about designation, even before designation hit, we've been hitting the ground running on trying to define what that strategy is for the next steps. Our focus is in medical imaging, an effort in personalized medicine, and we're looking at what our strategic position and what are the key challenges that we get to solve in terms of patient impact, technology leadership, and economic development. They've helped move that work forward by dividing us up into 4 different working groups. You can read that here at the top. I'm facilitating the workforce working group, where we have leaderships across a number of different entities that I'll show you. And our goals are to define problems, assets, benchmarks, and goals by the December 30th deadline. So here's a snapshot of some of the colleagues that I'm working with as part of the workforce group. You can see those on the left. We will, as we get a little bit closer to what are potential projects, we'll be pulling in subject matter experts. Right now, we have participation from UW Stout in one of the working groups, UW Milwaukee in the manufacturing working group, and other campuses that are involved in my workforce working group. So I'm trying to bring in colleagues as it makes sense. And we've come up with sort of 3 key ideals, if you will. We want to expand these workforce experiences and especially bring in youth apprenticeships. The next step is to communicate these industry recognized credentials for competitive skills and to be able to have robust industry engagement. I want to highlight that this is an example of a trend that is happening nationwide because of the CHIPS and Science Act. And I think for us, it's an opportunity to exercise a set of muscles to make us competitive in these future emerging markets that are happening all over the country. So here's a snapshot of what the National Science Foundation has done with their NSF Engines projects. And you can see these little dots have represented emerging technology areas all over the country. This is true of EDA, DoD, and a few other agencies that are using this money to create place-based innovation technology centers around the country. And they have the same MO. They're investing in key technologies. They're investing in consortiums of partnerships that are working really well together. They're asking us to define skills-based programming that are relevant to those technology sectors and the methodologies that are relevant in those sectors. And they're asking us to promote things, a balanced workforce. So investments that we might receive through some of these funding initiatives will help us do things like work closely with our technical college systems, work more closely with DWD and apprenticeship programs, and do things in ways that maybe we haven't been able to do before. And I'll say that it's a big lift, and I think our comprehensive campuses are really well positioned to take advantage of these opportunities, but it's not easy. And so one of the things that I'm looking out for are other dollars that are made available to help strengthen the capacity of our organizations to participate in these new knowledge economies. So we have, I just give a couple of here. These are through the National Science Foundation and a couple of campuses that I'm working with right now to try and tackle some of these opportunities. But my take-home message from this slide is that this is not just for STEM students. This is for arts and humanities and business students that are looking to participate in these new market opportunities. So I'm really keeping an eye out for what diversity looks like in this emerging landscape. So I'm wrapping up here by saying, yes, we have some key dates. This is kind of a sprint, again, until the February 29th due date. We're looking at what EDA is needing for a competitive position for workforce. And I want to leave by saying that Jeff mentioned that myself and Katie Boyce were asked to lead this in May. WDC asked us to lead this. And I do not think this would have been made possible except for this team. So they're not here, but I have to thank Katie Boyce. And I have to thank the consulting firm that has provided pro bono work for us, America Achieves. John Schnur is a Wisconsinite, was passionate, and helped us make sure that we put in a competitive proposal. So thank you.
All right, any questions for Adela? All right.
Congratulations.
Yes, terrific. Thank you. Talk about hitting the ground running. You really did.
More to come. This is the kind of thing I think we can leverage comprehensives that are ones in our polytechnic in a unique way if we do kind of a statewide approach to some of these grants. We're excited about that.
Yeah, it's very encouraging. All right.
I just want to say one thing. I'm really amazed that you did a grant in a weekend. So that's pretty incredible. So congratulations.
Thank you. It helps when you do sort of the thinking work up front. It just requires you to put it into words later. So
Still pretty amazing.
Maybe we should have you running grant writing seminars. Speed grant writing. Okay, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your time and presentation today. Really appreciate it. Okay, are there any regents or others who have communications, petitions, or memorials to share?
I have one I would like to share, Regent President Walsh. At this time, I'd like to extend our condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of UW Oshkosh's Martin Rudd, who passed away unexpectedly in mid-October. Over the last 20-some years, Martin has served various faculty and administrative roles within UW colleges before being named Assistant Chancellor in 2018 for Oshkosh's branch campuses at Fond du Lac and in the Fox Cities. As Chancellor Andy Levitt has noted, Martin brought immense dedication, knowledge, and passion to his role, and he will definitely be missed by so many whose lives he has touched.
Very good. And Chancellor Manukin, I believe you had one.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to extend my sincere condolences to family, friends, and colleagues, Emeritus Professor and former Provost of UW Madison, Aldo Luca Jr., who passed away on October 30. Luca's tenure at UW Madison spanned more than 40 years. He joined our campus as a postdoctoral fellow and assistant scientist before joining the faculty in 1975. Paul went on to serve as the chair of the Department of Medical Physics, vice dean for research and graduate studies for the School of Medicine, and then provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs from 2009 to 2014. He was an esteemed researcher, and Paul DeLuca will also be remembered as a wise and collaborative leader dedicated to advancing the research and teaching mission of UW Madison. You will be greatly missed by our campus community and everyone who's had touched. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Manukin. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our open session for today's meeting. Vice President Bogus, will you read the motion to move into closed session?
I move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to deliberate, negotiate UW system contracts, closed session for competitive or bargaining reasons as permitted by section 19.85, parent 1, parent E. Council regarding potential litigation which is likely to become involved regarding those contracts as permitted by section 19.85, parent 1, parent G of Wisconsin statutes, and confer with legal counsel regarding other potential and Tony with Markline Appeal number 2023 AP 0002020. OA litigation is permitted by section 1985, parent 1, parent G of the Wisconsin statutes. I can't leave. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Thank you. Please call the roll.
Regent President Walsh,
Yes.
Regent Vice President Bogus, Regent Adams, Regent Atwell,
Yes.
Regent Brinkus,
Yes.
Regent Cologne,
Yes.
Regent Jones, Regent Cruiser, Regent Menedez,
Yes.
Regent Miller,
Yes.
Regent Peterson, Regent Prince,
Yes.
Regent Rye,
Yes.
Regent Staton,
Yes.
Regent Tyler,
Yes.
Regent Underly,
Yes.
Regent Walks.
Yes.
Thank you. Regent Weatherly.